Hello, welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to continue with navigation. Navigation essentially means moving around the spreadsheet. We have talked about different ways that you can use the commands and tools. One way to expand or decrease your screen space is to use the scroll bar. Scroll bar, you can scroll up or you can scroll down to expand it. You can also scroll sideways, right? And you can scroll left. By now, I trust that you know that by clicking on the different cells, you can move around the different cells. One thing to mention here though, it is not only by clicking that you can move around. You can also move around the different cells by using the 4 arrows in your keyboard. The right arrow will move to the right. The left arrow will move to the left. The up arrow will move upward and the down arrow will move downward. If, for example, you want to know how far can you move downward, right? How far can you go by moving downward? Well, you can click your downward arrow for a very long time and at the end of the day, get to where you want to go. Or you can use the shortcut. Shortcut often makes you to get around tedious tasks by being able to do them very quickly. A shortcut for getting to the end of the row, the very last row, is you hold down your control key and you press the downward arrow. That takes you to the very last row, which is 1,048,576. That is row 1,048,576. You might be asking, how do we get back up? Well, there's a shortcut for that. Click on the control key and press the home key on your keyboard and it takes you to the very first cell, cell A1. Now that we've been to the end of the row and back, how about the end of the column? What is the very last column? To get to the very last column, you could do the same thing that we tried to do before by clicking on the right arrow and keep going and going. Well, as you can tell, that's probably going to take you forever. So there's a shortcut for that too. In this case, we press down the control key and we press the right arrow. And that takes us to the very end of the last column. That column is column XFD. The last row was row 1,048,576 and the last column at the very end of Excel is column XFD. Now that we've seen the length and the breadth of Excel, what else can we do here? Perhaps now is the time to look at the other different shortcuts. Shortcuts in Excel, like any other Microsoft applications, are numerous. They're so numerous, it is very difficult to memorize them. One way to know what shortcut to use sometimes is to hover over a command. When you hover over a command, for example, it gives you two things. Let's say bold. I hover over the command bold, leave my cursor there. It tells me that this is bold and that the shortcut for bold is Control B. Then it also gives me a tooltip. A tooltip is an instruction on what a command does. For example, in the case of bold, it makes your text bold. How about italic? Let's put our cursor there. The shortcut is Control I, and the tooltip says it italicizes your text. Underline, same thing. The shortcut is Control U. Tooltip, underline your text. Now, not every command will give you this. Many will give you the tooltip, but not all of them will provide you with the shortcut. But many of the frequently used commands does have shortcut. Now let's go to the Insert tab and find link. Let's place our cursor there. It tells us here what the shortcut to hyperlink is and also gives us a tool tip on what and how this can be used. I did say before that shortcuts are numerous and it can be very difficult to memorize them, but there are frequently used shortcuts that should be memorized. For example, Control N. In order to create a new document, if you press Control and you press the N button on your keyboard, it provides you with a new workbook. Right now it's workbook 3. Right? The previous one we were was workbook 1, and the one we just created is workbook 3. Well, it's saying workbook 3 because I previously created workbook 2, so it's assuming that's still in play. In any case, to create a new document, you press your Control key, hold it, and click on the N button on your keyboard, and there you have another workbook. So let's close this. Let's close this. So we have just done save. So we have just one on the screen. How about if we want to open an already existing workbook? Something we'll be working on is already saved and closed. If we want to open it with a shortcut, we click on the Control and we'll press the Home button. Then we can go back to what we saw in the backstage of Excel and either find it in our recently opened workbook, or we can go to our OneDrive, or check this PC, or browse our computer to find the location. Another useful shortcut is Control C. Control C is to copy. Let's say I have the word data here and I want to have it in several other places. I can click on it, right click and copy. That would do, and then paste, right? But I do not want to do too many clicks. I want to use a shortcut. If I highlight it by clicking on it, if I click Control C, you see the highlights around the text. That shows you it's been copied. Then I can paste somewhere else by clicking over there and then clicking on Control V to paste. Okay? I can paste as many as I like by using the shortcut Control V. Control C to copy and Control V to paste. Okay, I've made a mess here. There's so many things going on here. I want to undo this. There are two ways to undo. I can click on the undo button right here because we placed this here in our quick access toolbar, remember earlier? Or I can use a shortcut. Since we're talking about shortcuts, so let's use a shortcut. The shortcut for undo is Control Z. That was the last item pasted. Let's undo the next one. Let's undo the other one. Undo the other one. Undo that. Undo that. And undo that. So to reiterate, in order to know what a shortcut is for frequently used commands, you can hover your cursor around it and then you can see what the shortcut is in order for you to remember, and also the tooltip. The shortcut for creating a new Excel document or workbook is Control N. The shortcut to open an existing workbook, something that you've been working on, is Control O. The shortcut to copy is Control N. The shortcut to paste is Control V. And the shortcut to undo the things that you've done is Control Z. Now, I have one more thing to show you before I move on to the next lesson. The shortcut to save as is F12. If you're saving for the first time your work with a different name and Excel type, or as well as change the location, the shortcut is F12. F12 is the shortcut for save as. If I press S12, it brings me this dialog box that allows me to find a location, to select a location to save my work. It also gives me an opportunity to save my file with a name. Let's say Excel 2016 navigation. Okay, so we can save it as that. And the last thing we can also do here is that we can save it as a specific type. The default is saved as Excel workbook, but that's not the only thing we can do. We can also save by many other types, including saving as PDF, CSV, text format, and most importantly for me is you can save as Excel 97 to 2003, which is an old version of Excel. As I mentioned earlier, this is important if you're going to be sharing your work with people that use older version of Excel. Let's cancel that. All right, so here we go. Now we know how to move around Excel and how to use some frequently used shortcuts. I want to talk to you about something very powerful in Excel, the Smart Lookup. The Smart Lookup is Microsoft flexing its search engine muscle. Without much talking, let's just go ahead and see, and let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's say we type APR. For most of you accounting students, you probably already know what this means, but for the rest of us humans, this might seem like something from the sky. But Excel can help us find out the meaning. If we right click on it, and then right click and click and find Smart Lookup, we can click on that, and Excel with the search engine can tell us what APR means. It says here, abbreviation, annual or annualized percentage rate, typically of interest on loans and credit. There are other search results here, but the annual percentage rate is definitely the one to go with. How about we try something else? Maybe CPI. Let's try CPI. CPI. Okay, right click, Smart Lookup. What does this stand for? Not the Communist Party of India. Definitely not. If we're talking about business related concepts, I'm sure it is Consumer Price Index. I think the point to note here is that when you use a search engine, you have to have some idea of what you are expecting. So the search result will provide you with so many things, but it's up to you to be able to analyze the data and figure out what you're looking for. For us, since we're searching for business related terms in Excel, it is expected that we know that Consumer Price Index is abbreviated for CPI. If we're looking for concept related to international politics or politics in India, then probably Communist Party of India will make sense. Let's try one more. Something simpler this time. GDP. Okay, what does this stand for? Smart Lookup. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. There's no mistake in this. All the search results that we have indicates that. Okay, so we'll be searching for acronyms. How about we search for the name of a person? Well, let's try Bill Gates. Okay, so will Smart Lookup be able to help us here? Let's see. Smart Lookup. There you go. Bill Gates. William Henry Gates III is an American business magnate. Yada, 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 yada. You can read the rest for yourself. But the point here is that we are able to use the Smart Lookup not only to search for acronyms or abbreviations, we are also able to use it to search for names. All right. The last thing I want to talk about in this lesson is the search bar. Is this powerful search bar? Tell me what you want to do. I talked about how the Smart Lookup has been very useful. It does work in tandem with the search bar here. Let me type Bill Gates here, for example. Bill Gates, and then Smart Lookup on Bill Gates, and it gives me exactly the same information that we had before. But the most important use of this search bar is to search for commands and tools. Let's say insert. I'm able to use this to search for insert. Now it's asking me, what do you want to insert? I can click on this drop down to specifically identify what I want to insert. I can insert cells, sheet rows, sheet columns, or sheet. So let's just insert sheet columns. There you go. You see there's now one between APRO and CPI because my cursor was placed there. So let's do that again. Let's undo, Ctrl Z. All right, this is where my cursor is right now. So let's go get an insert a row. So click on this and insert column. There you go. So this is a game changer. This is very, very helpful. If you don't know how and where to find a particular command and you know what the name of the command is, all you have to do is to come to this search bar that is called tell me what you want to do, type the name of the command, and it will bring it up for you. All right, so I want you to play around with this a little bit and then meet us on the other side.